guys, because I want my audience to know that I am in fact a cultured swine. I'm sure it's gonna be thematic in the future. It's just like how I'm wearing black. You know, you always wear black to a funeral. You know, it's the thematic choices that count. Now I know what you all must be thinking. Exro, there's been so much that's happened with YouTube as of late. Why the fuck is your dumbass still lingering on a topic that can barely even break 1,000 views? Well, listen here, fucko. I'm not a man of popularity. I'm merely an entertainer and a critic. And as these two things, I demand justice for the things I talk about and discuss on my own channel. Therefore, I am putting an end to all the copious amounts of drama in regards to the YouTube platform by making a statement that will completely contradict what I said earlier because I'm a retard who doesn't proofread my own scripts. Considering that I have a loyal and dedicated fan base of 1.2k goons, it means I'm basically the next PewDiePie. And as a new contender for the #1 spot on YouTube, as we all know I'm clearly fit for, I demand every atrocity and evil deed taking place right now to stop until I've gotten caught up with my own schedule. That's right, Earth. I'm telling you to knock it off until I, Exro W Plays, am capable of discussing such topics. In a more serious manner, though, I guess it's that time of day to finally finish talking about this retarded lizard for the last time. I sincerely wish that I could look you all dead in the eye with a straight face and say that the second half of this document isn't nearly as bad as the first, but holy shit. The second half of this document just gets so much fucking worse in such a short amount of time. Before we really start, I'm just gonna say right here, right now, that I'm not gonna really provide much context for the moment, since this is a direct follow-up to another video. If you don't know what the fuck's happening, just watch the other video, man. You willingly clicked on a video that had part 2 written on it with fucking bold ink, so I'd expect you to already know, you goofball. I find it hilarious how you get on me for acting arrogant and high and mighty, yet you literally decide to play. To be fair, you have to have a very high IQ to understand Stax Lottle, guys. Man, how thematically appropriate, isn't it? No, really, just step back and think about it. The first argument in part 1 was so bad that I had to decode it and break it down into multiple layers just to explain why it's a terrible argument. And wouldn't you know it, I'm now being faced with the same exact position now. Okay, so before I dive into the whole arrogance argument, I'm just going to address the major fucking elephant in the room. You literally decide to play. To be fair, you have to have a high IQ to understand Stax Lottle, guys. Wow. What a phenomenal comment. I think the thing that really astounds me with that comment is how he decided to portray my defense of Stax Lottle, almost as if he wasn't expecting me to defend Stax Lottle as much as I did in a video called In Defense of Stax Lottle. Really makes you think, I know. Yeah, you could probably argue that he's referring to how I defend Stax as opposed to the concept of defending Stax on its own, but I at no point acted condescending towards anyone for disliking his content. As a matter of fact, I was constantly saying throughout my original video that's perfectly fine to dislike Stax Lottle. You don't have to like his content. That's perfectly fine. Once again, to reiterate, it is okay to dislike somebody's content. Okay, so he starts off by saying he doesn't like Stax's humor, which, you know, that's fine enough, I guess. You can have your own opinions. That's fine. Hell, I even think Kevin was close to actually making a valid argument by the end of his video, but the thing is, Kevin not only disregards basic formatting practices that everyone is well aware of when trying to make a point against something, but he also continued to showcase a basic misunderstanding over why people appreciate his content so much to begin with. If you're going to argue against his personality being lacking, that's perfectly fine. Actually valid in some circumstances. However, if you're going to make such claims, you should at least show some self-awareness in regards to why people like his content anyways. It would better set up the tone of your video and would better alert people to the fact that yes, this video is going to be purely subjective, as opposed to throwing us on the battlefield and making base level critiques while also throwing these lines in there.
What happened, people? What happened to making a legitimately entertaining video? Is this what ranting has become? Like, seriously?
It's not a balance there. Hey, this ain't no balanced breakfast. This is just a bowl of shit. I think it's perfectly okay to dislike a YouTube personality. However, I am much more concerned with why you dislike that personality. Mostly because I'd like to think of myself as someone who promotes critical thinking and doesn't just repeat the most basic commentaries that everyone has already said. Not to say I'm perfect or anything. But I think it definitely highlights the differences between our thought processes. The only reason I was critiquing you in the first place is because I believe you did a shit job at reviewing someone's content yourself. Which leads me into the next brilliant analysis he points out in his segment. You cannot criticize me for being arrogant, and yet you decide to be arrogant as well as the fact that you display a smug sense of superiority throughout this entire video. It's one of the reasons why I act so arrogant in my videos, because I love just showcasing how two-faced people can be when it comes to this topic. Okay, so yeah, he pretty much went for the easiest target available. The issue with this argument is just the fact that I don't think being arrogant on its own is a bad thing, unlike what Kuhtoonster is implying I am saying when I make fun of Kuhtoons for being arrogant. I think being arrogant's okay. As a matter of fact, I addressed in my first video on the Frogman himself that I wasn't going to take the topic that seriously to begin with. But here's the deal when it comes to that sort of thing. If you're going to act all arrogant and condescending, you better, at the very least, be well versed in the person or topic you're being arrogant towards. If you're not, it backfires really fucking hard. It can affect how the audience perceives your personality and your own channel, because arrogance can horribly backfire and make you look like a literal mental patient. This is evident through Kuhtoon's video on Stax Lodl. So no, you ain't expose me for being any sort of two-faced liar. It's a very simple equation actually. You don't get guitar lessons from someone who's never even touched a single fret, you get it from an experienced trainer who's well versed in the strings and chords and frets and all that shit. It ties into credibility. Next! Oh boy, this next argument, it sure is something else. If I were to make a definitive claim with this video, I would definitely say something along the lines of this being his worst argument in the video. And that's saying a lot because oh man, what a rough resume.
The difference between me and this guy is that the people I decided to overanalyze were reviewers. People who actually tried critiquing pieces of media and did an overall shit job at it with their points. That's the main difference.
So you're saying that the only piece of content that matters in this community is you reviewing reviewers reviewing something else? Nope, that's not what I said. My point was that when I decided to overanalyze retards on the internet, it was people who made arguments and had actual points in their videos. Basically, I overanalyzed people who had substance, while Stax overanalyzes people who don't have any substance at all and just makes shitty animation storytime videos. Therefore, you cannot call me a hypocrite because those two situations are different. Okay, so I think now's a good time to introduce another third party into this whole discussion. During the wait for part 1 and part 2 of this video, some fucking Randy by the name of SRV popped out of nowhere and made a response video to my video critiquing Kuhtoon's video. It's getting a little convoluted by this point, I know, just stick in there with me. However, unlike Kuhtoonster here, SRV actually brought a lot of new and interesting points to the table. Basically, if you haven't seen this video already, I highly recommend you do. It does a good job at refuting a lot of the points I made in my critique of Kuhtoon's video, and I personally believe it adds a lot of weight and interest onto the discussion as a whole. When it came to him critiquing the argument I just made in my original video, the one I just showed, he refuted my beliefs with this point.
I feel like Exro kinda missed the point here. Now, I don't really agree with what Professor Kuhtoons was trying to say, however, I do feel like Exro doesn't fully realize what he was trying to say. He overanalyzed reviewers. Reviewers are people with actual arguments that could legitimately influence what people think about a certain topic. Depending on how harsh the critiques are, it could be legitimately damaging to someone's reputation. So if an argument that has flaws could legitimately influence people, then it is perfectly reasonable to point out those flaws.
That's pretty fucking smart in my opinion. And if I'm being honest here, is a perspective I would have never even been able to understand just from how poorly Kuhtoons relayed this information in the first place. But the issue with this argument is the fact that it's too smart. You see, I'd like to give both SRV and Kevin the benefit of the doubt here, but looking at Kuhtoonster's response to me pointing out this to begin with leads me to believe that Kuhtoons just holds this concept of importance simply because he already dislikes the storytime animator community and the commentary community critiquing it. Like, he replied with something kinda to the extent of what SRV was saying by saying it was people who made arguments and had actual points in their videos, but then sets this thought to the sidelines to further this notion that there is no more substance left to talk about the storytime animator community. Now, SRV in his video does follow that statement up with this explanation.
However, generally with storytime animators, they're usually not making arguments. For the most part, they won't really be influencing anybody to do anything. Again, I don't necessarily agree with what Kuhtoons said there, but I think that's what he meant.
Which looks like it would help define Kevin's claim that there's nothing new to talk about with the storytime animation community, hence the lack of substance he's always referring to in regards to this topic. But at no point in his original video does Kevin even really go in depth with talking about Stax' content in the first place. Therefore, he's relying on our preconceived notions of both the storytime animated community and the rant/commentary community. What this means is that it's hard to believe that SRV's original defense for Kuhtoons plays a major role in it when, for one, it's immediately dismissed in Kevin's very own official document in response to my critique, and for two, he never directly applies these concepts towards Stax, setting up a guilty by association mindset. I messed up the original wording, so here I am now to fix everything. I'm not gonna linger on over this point for much longer. Basically, all you need to know from the two other walls of text he so graciously dropped on my doorstep is him calling me a hypocrite for not showing the part where he acknowledges that he's overanalyzed content creators in the past. I don't even know what the fuck to say anymore. How the fuck is me showing the part where you acknowledged you fucked up going to help either side of the argument? It is the most irrelevant thing you possibly could have recommended for me to play. You can argue that it contradicts me setting up that original point of him defending himself because he's also acknowledging faults, but regardless, he's still trying to defend his videos, so I mean, it's just a pointless comedy throw in there because he's way too easily distracted, which, trust me, you're gonna get a full whiff of that in a second. I tell you what, it's like Mama's Bakery in here.
It's just retards who can't animate, talking about their lives in the most pandering way possible that appeals to socially awkward teenagers. Like, oh my god, you made a video talking about how much you get yourself overworked when it comes to making videos? Hashtag so relatable. Yeah, that's really cute. I took physics, chemistry, calculus 2 last semester, and while everybody else fails those classes individually, I got a solid A on all of them. No A- bullshit either. Shut the fuck up.
I'm sorry. Who is this argument for again? Did you forget that you were making a Stax video there, bub? I was clearly talking about the storytime animation community because I made the point that they are retards who talk about their lives in a way that would only appeal to socially inept teenagers. I was explaining my point by using Jaden Animation's video on Burnout as an example. You know, the thing you do when you try to make an argument. You missed the whole point of why I brought that up to begin with. Congratulations. It was just a passive comment that wasn't very hard to comprehend, and you still didn't understand what I was trying to say. Fucking incredible. Kuhtoons, you advertised this video as a video on Stax Lotl. I couldn't care less about the storytime animator shit if I tried. If you want to make a video on storytime animators, just make a fucking video on storytime animators. It's very clear you've grown quite the hate boner for them at this point, so why not go all in? Oh wait, that's right, you quit. But oops, didn't stop you from the implement video. Oh well.
His voice is the most monotone thing I have ever heard in my fucking life.
It's funny that you bring up the monotone argument because all it does is just showcase that you don't know what a monotone voice even is. This is a monotone voice.
When you think of the ranting community, you usually think about people like Spockter, Pentagon, Solar Sands. And what do these guys all have in common? They're toxic as hell.
And this is just his normal speaking voice.
And these were on top of the 20% of all earnings they made that went straight into the Paul's pockets, meaning that Jake was constantly stealing money from fellow members of Team 10 for small and seemingly pointless mishaps.
Congrats, you showed a clip of him sounding even more like a robot in his first video, and then showed a clip of him still sounding monotone but less robotic, and that somehow refutes my point. Not only does that not make any fucking sense, but you didn't even bother to address the point I was making to begin with. You realize that Stax isn't monotone, right? Sure, you can say he has a very droning voice or something along those lines, but regardless, his voice still fluctuates. It might not fluctuate that much, but it's still happening. Okay, so I'm gonna be knocking out these next few points one by one because they're short as hell and they're not very good. God forbid he doesn't do the same hilarious goofy voices that you do.
Well, this guy has animation in his videos, and his editing is good. Like, oh my god, you made a video talking about how much you get yourself overworked when it comes to making videos? Hashtag so relatable.
Man, I sure do love it whenever you do that to make an actual point. That certainly isn't grating on the goddamn ears. Yes, because expecting a commentator to sound like they give a shit while speaking is the same thing as me wanting them to do my mocking voice. You're asking them to convey personality. Alright, fair enough, but there's a couple issues with how you go about making this request. Kuhtoons himself has already established by this point in the video that if he doesn't like your personality, he will make sure you know for no other reason than just simply not pertaining to his tastes. Which is perfectly fine, mind you, different strokes for different folks, but this is where actual legitimate critique gets blended in with the subjective perception. He wants Stax Lyle to emote, but when Stax does emote, he either shames Stax for it, as shown in a future jokes portion that we'll be talking about, or he'll continue to be stubborn for the sake of maintaining his own points, even when being presented with the evidence that states otherwise, as per the case of monotone argument. Due to this, we're now having to use the good old process of elimination to come to a conclusion of what Kuhtoons looks for in his reviewers. He's usually referencing figures like Dark Scythe or Silent Bob, another thing we'll talk about in the future. You can definitely tell that he tries to inflict an aspect of their personalities into his videos. This is why I use those absolutely knee-slappingly amazing goofy voices to portray opposing arguments clip. Because it's reflective of what you expect, and considering how you keep crossing between subjective arguments presented as legitimate critiques on the community as a whole, it leaves that open wound for us to approach that more introspective look of your personal preferences. Simply put, you're not separated enough from your online persona to simply deflect that criticism. Once again, to reiterate, it is okay to dislike somebody's content. What isn't okay is when you take these subjective and non-arguments and pin it against the person in an attempt to dish out legitimate criticism. So him putting no emotion into his videos when he is a commentator and me calling that shit out is not legitimate criticism? Okay, bro. This refers back to my previous statement. A fault on my end is not clarifying the importance of subjective argumentation and critical commentary. I'll admit that. What I should have argued against instead is that it isn't legitimate criticism because it doesn't apply to Stax Lyle. As we've already established, Stax does not have a monotone voice. If you think he does, you might actually be very tone deaf. Droning voice? Sure thing, but Kuhtoons is very specifically saying monotone and is sticking by monotone, not droning. I'm just going to skip over this segment entirely because it's only functional on an emotional level. If you don't like Stax's humor, well, yeah, obviously you wouldn't like his jokes. Not that his earlier videos are that funny to begin with, but I mean, once again, he doesn't try to be insane with his humor, and appears very rarely in his videos because he tries to take a more critical approach to these topics. Even if his jokes appear rarely in his videos, they are still painful to sit through, so I will still call that shit out. Sorry if it bothers you so much. My point here is not to discredit Kevin's points by claiming it rarely happens, therefore it's not an issue. I mean, mass extinctions rarely happen, only it's like 5 or 6 of those puppies over the span of billions of years, but guess what? They fucking suck! Regardless, my point was to prove that you don't pay attention to what Stax Lyle is trying to do. Stax isn't based in comedy. He isn't a comedian, he makes analytical commentary. That's like encouraging to add politics on review channels that have nothing to do with politics whatsoever, aside from your own personal enjoyment of politics. See what I did there, Quentin? I did the thing where where I insert a direct jab at someone else for no reason, you piece of shit. Now let us take this wonderful time to examine his amazing formatting that relays information perfectly to the viewer. Okay, so he starts off by saying he doesn't like Stax' humor, which, you know, that's fine enough, I guess. You can have your own opinions. That's fine. But then he follows this up by refuting the arguments that his fans supposedly use, that he uses animation to represent himself.
And I don't want to hear this bullshit of,
Well, this guy has animation in his videos, and his editing is good. What a hard-working YouTuber. Nah, fuck off.
Okay, firstly, as the editor of Stax' videos, I am very much involved within his community, and never have I once seen this being used as a way to refute somebody else's arguments against him. So this argument isn't even based on any logic to begin with. Well, that's because there was never really any person who even bothered making a video critiquing Stax to begin with, or at least there was never really any video I have seen that got some viewership, so of course you would have not seen it, you moron. And the place I got this argument from is that Stax's fanbase is filled with retards from new wave fag commentary communities who constantly love people like Jar, and these retards say shit like, wow, he has awesome production value, therefore his videos are good. And by the way, some of them did actually make that point. Show Discord screenshot. Well, that's already aged poorly. Okay, so let's say that Kevin isn't bullshitting. Let's say that somehow this is a real argument being presented to us by Stax's fans. Let's also suppose that Kevin totally wasn't just going to strawman the fan base by just using one single instance of it and calling it good. Even assuming this is real, why the fuck didn't you show any evidence of these arguments in the first place? You know that unless this video is a direct response to something, they're supposed to be able to stand out on their own, right? Now, by the whole shit that, oh, nobody's ever critiqued Stax before. Yeah, sure, maybe not to the extent that you have, but given your lack of basic understanding over what Stax even does in the first place, why the fuck am I supposed to just randomly believe that you'd be the one who understands his fanbase enough to make those sorts of claims anyways? Also, I just want to take some time to appreciate Kevin's grammatical fuck-ups once again. Honestly, this document is so fluent in basic English errors that you could make an entire drinking game around it. And the place I got this argument from is that Stax's fanbase is filled with retards from the new wave fag CC who constantly love people like Jar. Kevin, I'm gonna have to sit you down here because Stax's fanbase is not a place. Jar is not a place. New wave fag CC isn't a fucking place. You started off that sentence by adding that there was a place you got these arguments from and that they were from Stax's fanbase being filled with retards who love people like Jar. That's not a fucking place. Wait a second. Doesn't that also apply to what you said earlier? So wait, you're saying you did in fact get this argument from somewhere. These arguments are all based from some sort of reality, right? Then why the fuck didn't you show evidence of that in your original video? You can't use the excuse anymore that, oh, no one critiqued Stax before I did. If that were the case, how did you base these rebuttals in the video off anything at all? Your two options are, A, you pulled shit out of your ass, or B, you're so lazy that you can't verify your own claims with any evidence of this happening, despite it being a literal 3-second fix. Holy hell. These next 3 points are him trying to justify his terrible transitions into 3 different points at the same time that had absolutely nothing to do with each other. I'm going to ignore almost all of them because he doesn't actually defend himself here. He just states, oh, I was transitioned into another argument, which is such a load of shit. All I have to do to refute that point is just show the original clip in question. You'll see that he very obviously is grabbing at literally any and every argument he can with his alpha male gamer hands, and because of that, he pulls so many arguments out of his ass that hold no correlation to each other. I really recommend you all just witness the travesty for yourselves because this is honestly jaw-droppingly bad. However, there is one segment in particular I want to look into because it's quite the sight to behold. Yeah, if people were as stupid and mindless as you are, then I wouldn't blame them if they got lost throughout that segment. Fucking incredible. Remember, kids, if Kuhtoons makes a mistake, it isn't because he's an incoherent jackass who has no idea what he's talking about. No, actually, it's your fault for misunderstanding. You know, for as many insults that I've thrown out at Kevin throughout all of this, I am absolutely dumbfounded that he's so stubborn that he legitimately believes everyone else who is critical of his video and his formatting are the ones in the wrong. No fucking wonder he's quit YouTube like, what, 3 times now? Maybe 4? He then goes on to compare me to a first grader. So I decide, you know what? I'll take that as a challenge. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the first ever Are You Smarter Than a First Grader? What I'm going to be doing in this segment is simply making a giant list compiling of all the grammatical and logical inconsistencies he's made throughout what we've already covered in the document, and you know, point out logical fallacies that don't make any sense from a surface level. Yes, for some, even most of these points, I will repeat previous critiques, but in this instance, it contributes to the larger picture here, so hang in there, folks. It's funny because you get on to me for supposedly not providing context to the viewer. And you later on criticize me for supposedly not doing any research on the topic I'm critiquing when you made this abysmal point that could have easily been seen if you watched a video I made on the matter that you even showcased yourself. This makes absolutely no sense because I never posed my original critique as a question that could be answered, nor do you even try to counter my claim. Likewise, you pose your video as being another video entirely, which just makes no sense whatsoever. First of all, I never said that your community was inspired by the Leafy's Here commentary community. I said that your community takes attributes from the Leafy's Here commentary community. Leafy and the critical commentary community are not comparable because Leafy specializes in reactionary commentary, not critical commentary. I never said that Staxolotl didn't bring anything new to the table. That wasn't what my point was. My point was that the storytime animation community, in terms of actual content, are retards who make the same type of generic shitty videos, and therefore obsessing over this dipshit community is so fucking autistic and stupid. I mean, for fuck's sake, let's look at the list of new points that Stax brings up in his videos. Discuss the stagnation? Yeah, because it's not like you can apply that to literally every fucking YouTuber on this website, am I right? The same shit applies to the importance of maintaining an identity and the importance of consistency. You outright contradict yourself by claiming that you never said Stax doesn't bring anything new to the table, and proceed to go over a list of themes he's dived into in an attempt to prove your point that Stax doesn't bring anything new to the table. And those observations were pointless and a waste of time to drag out his shitty video, which was my fucking point. But you don't seem to understand that whatsoever. 12 extra seconds doesn't contribute to you dragging out a video. Most content on this website isn't meaningful. Yes, even my own content as well. Do you know how I know this? Because YouTube doesn't affect my daily life at all. It's just something I do in my spare time, and if YouTube does have a legitimate impact on your life, then that's honestly really sad. You're saying most content doesn't matter because it doesn't personally affect you, and going on to say it's sad for other people to find meaning in content because it doesn't personally affect you. We all understand the issues with that, right? I find it hilarious how you get on me for acting so arrogant and high and mighty, yet you literally decide to play. To be fair, you have to have a high IQ to understand Staxolotl, guys. I at no point said or even implied this. This is just a straw man he's put on me to turn the audience against me. Congratulations, you showed a clip of him sounding even more like a robot in his first video, and then showed a clip of him still sounding monotone but less robotic, and that somehow refutes my points. Hilarious. Followed up with the statement, so him putting no emotions into his videos when he is a commentator and me calling that shit out is not legitimate criticism? You're directly contradicting yourself here by requesting for him to add more personality in his videos, only to then condemn him for trying what you wanted. Well, that's because there was never really any person who even bothered making a video critiquing Staxolotl to begin with, or at least there was never really any video I have seen that got some viewership. So of course you would not have seen it, you moron. And the place I got this argument from is that Staxolotl's fanbase is filled with retards from the new wave fag CC who constantly love people like Jar, and these retards say shit like, wow, he has awesome production values, therefore his videos are good. These two statements contradict each other in the sense that you're saying that no one else has argued against him, but you still somehow based your rebuttals off of somewhere. On top of that, Jar and Staxolotl's fanbase is not in place. Going over this list of logical inconsistencies or outright contradictions, I rallied up each offense with a point. Some offenses count up for 2 points because there are multiple issues with said point. Overall, from reading about 6 pages out of this 8-page document, we've rallied up 11 points total. Your average human being will usually rally up around 0 to 2 because they understand critical thinking and are capable of comprehending basic English. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Kuhtoonster is in fact not smarter than a first grade. Thank you all for coming out tonight. Jesus, what the fuck? Why look, everybody, it's the ultimate ranter himself, Kuhtoonster.
What the heck is happening? Where am I?
Kuhtoonster, how does it feel to find out firsthand on this set that you were in fact not smarter than a first grader?
Hello, yes, I don't know where I am or what's happening, but I would really appreciate it if someone could help me. Just call that little number 911 right there, please. Oh, that would be real helpful. Thank you, guys. Just please help me get out of here.
All right,
I swear
buddy, it
to
was
God,
nice
if you
talking
put
to
me
you.
back
I'm just gonna
inside
put
that
you back
box,
in
we're
this
going to
box
have some
here.
problems.
You enjoy your vacation. You've really earned it. Honestly, the deeper I get into this document, the more I question if I should even commentate on any of it. You see, I'm not one to spoon feed my audience the most basic commentary ever. That's Kuhtoon's job. But I can't help but question what the fuck to even say when you have things like, no, you Neanderthal, not the ranting community, the fans of this new wave ranting community. Since there are no fans who whine about storytime animators being lazy with their content despite the fact that they have animation, even though these are the same guys who will sit down like fucking retards and praise people like Jar for having a moving mouth. That's not what I meant with my point. I thought it was obvious, but of course your retards wouldn't understand it. Here's the thing. I don't need to argue against this or to insult him for this. All I have to do is just show the original clip it's based off of, and I get the feeling that most people will understand how fucking random these arguments are. So I've been thinking on how to tackle this segment just to show the audience how amazingly terrible his initial claims were, and I think I figured out how. I'm gonna show both the entirety of the segment I deconstructed and show the clip in which I deconstructed in the first place, also in its entirety. And I want you to come up with your own conclusion over who is in the right. Because here's the thing, whenever Kevin tries to defend himself, it looks like he's vomiting words without understanding what they mean or what he's already said. So, for the sake of allowing the viewer to assess the situation in their own eyes, I present to you both the original clip and a critique of that clip.
And I don't want to hear this bullshit of,
Well, this guy has animation in his videos, and his editing is good. What a hard-working YouTuber.
nah, fuck off. I would rather see someone who has the worst editing and production values imaginable. I would rather see someone take a piss in a jar and use an image of their piss in a jar in their video. I'd rather see that if they actually have a personality versus someone who has like a full-fledged cartoon but has zero personality whatsoever. You know, it's really funny how these guys constantly whine about the storytime animation community being lazy with their videos, even though they have animation in their videos. And now when it comes to this fucking retard, they're like, wow, he has animation in his videos. What a fucking awesome YouTuber. Like, fuck off, dude. You guys are no better than the fans of the storytime animation community. Like, honestly. And I don't want to hear this bullshit of,
Well, this guy has animation in his videos, and his editing is good. What a hard-working YouTuber.
nah, fuck off.
Okay, firstly, as the editor of Stax' videos, I'm very much involved within his community, and never have I once seen this being used as a way to refute somebody else's arguments against him. So this argument isn't even based on any logic to begin with. But secondly, what does this point even have to do with his jokes? This claim had absolutely nothing to do with the focus of the segment you were talking about. But then he goes on to use this point to insult his personality. Once again, that was never a factor in this argument against his jokes in the first place.
I would rather see someone take a piss in a jar and use an image of their piss in a jar in their video. I'd rather see that if they actually have a personality versus someone who has like a full-fledged cartoon but has zero personality whatsoever.
And then he goes further to say this right after.
You know, it's really funny how these guys constantly whine about the storytime animation community being lazy with their videos, even though they have animation in their videos. And now when it comes to this fucking retard, they're like, wow, he has animation in his videos. What a fucking awesome YouTuber. Like, fuck off, dude.
I just want to make it clear to everyone out there, if you are so deeply lost in this entire segment, don't worry. Okay, so at first you think he's going to talk about how they whine about storytime animators and then make the claim that their personality is just as lazy, right? I mean, it's the most logical place I thought that was gonna go for a minute. I mean, he did just derail the argument to talk about Stax' personality, so you know, process of elimination. But then takes a complete 180 and makes the observation that Stax uses animation. He uses this as an argument despite not making a single claim in the first place. So, to put it simply, his point was that the rant community can't complain about the lazy animation whenever Stax also animates. He doesn't even specify if Stax' animation is good or not. He just says that they can't do this thing because this one guy animates. What does that even mean? And follows it up with this comment.
You guys are no better than the fans of the Storytime animation community. Like, honestly.
Okay, so hold on for a minute. When was the Storytime fanbase a variable in this scenario at all? You started off talking about Stax' humor, went off on a tangent about how his fanbase makes an argument that nobody has ever made, went off to say that the community can't criticize this other guy because, you know, someone within their community does the exact same, except no, he doesn't. He isn't guilty by association of an entire medium that's existed for nearly a century by this point. In fact, I'm pretty sure it has been over a century by this point. And then you finally redirected back to the Storytime animators fan base. Weirdly enough, he follows up that last part of the clip I showed by saying this. His animation being good or not does not change or invalidate my overall point that he has no personality in his videos. Sure, his animation is pretty good, honestly, but that doesn't matter to me. And honestly, I am going to skip the rest of this tirade because the video is long enough already and he has literally shown that he is just too dumb to understand the actual point in the question that I was making. Kuhtoonster, what the fuck are you on about now? When did I ever say his animation was good, therefore your point is invalid? The thing that tugs at my skin is how much he accuses me of refuting arguments he's never made, while at the same time he does the exact same thing. And of course, once again, per tradition, he ends off this extended piece of dialogue by basically saying I'm too dumb to understand his points, which is once again the ultimate irony because he accused me earlier of saying that you have to have a high IQ to understand Stax level. Yet here, he's doing exactly that. He's performing exactly what he criticized me for earlier. I don't even think that's the funniest part either. I think it's a lot more entertaining that all the things he's called me out for has really just been him misreading what I've been saying, at least for the most part anyways. So he's accusing me of doing things that I haven't really been doing for the most part, and proceeds to do the exact same thing later on down the line. Remember that time I said you have to know what you're talking about in order for an arrogant personality to be justifiable? Yeah, this is exactly what I meant when I say that, because Kevin looks like a fucking moron throughout this entire, all of this.
Not trying to sound like a nostalgia fag, but I remember back then seeing rant videos from people like Silent Rob, where it's just some fag going up on camera and just shit-talking people. But here's the thing. Those videos were and still are fun to watch. In fact, let me just show you a little bit of Silent Rob with his rant video, that he made back in 2009.
Wow, so you're not even going to showcase the actual context of Silent Rob's rant video? That's a fair point, I believe. To explain myself some, my editing software was fucking up and no matter what I tried, it wouldn't let me just speed up the video. I don't know what the fuck the issue was. In fact, it just seemed to have fixed itself later on for future projects. But when you have a laptop that has parts that are aged by a decade, issues will just kind of spring out of nowhere that make no sense whatsoever. It doesn't justify me transitioning my own point as terribly as I did. I'm just hoping to give some insight before Kevin here tries to call me a two-faced liar of some sort or a manipulator. However, this next point is what really grinds my gears. Oh wow, Professor, you're right. He is pretty entertaining. I wonder why this type of content is no longer predominant in the rant community. I'm really intrigued by this topic. Let us dive a little deeper than below the surface level and look into why toxicity doesn't seem to last very long in any given community. When I say toxicity, I mean the people who are intentionally as destructive as possible with their content and provides no actual or valued arguments for their claims, instead opting to throw insults at other creators and using that as the argument. Yeah, no, shut the fuck up. You can't try to apply that to Silent Rob's video considering that that was a rant on the irate gamer. It wasn't made to just be deconstructive, because if you actually did some research on the old ranting community, then you would know that the reason why the rant video exists is because the irate gamer not only plagiarized the angry video game nerd, but that the irate gamer was literally going around and false flagging people's content if they dared criticize him. It wasn't made just to be destructive? So are you trying to say it is constructive, at least to an extent? Unless you're pitching in the idea that it can't substitute for toxic behavior because there are other motivations for the video itself, but fact is, most toxic channels have ulterior motives when making videos bent on destroying the credibility of the YouTubers and people they target. So let's look at the clip he chose. Actually, for real this time, and I want you to point out an instance where Rob attempts to be constructive with his points.
Okay, he's reviewing cereal and Kool-Aid packets now? Are you fucking serious? I mean, it's not even about the money at this point. I'm just worried about the mental state of the world. I mean, this guy gets like 250,000 views per video. That's 250,000 fat, unfunny virgins that sit around watching this guy thinking he's funny. Are you fucking serious, okay? This guy's like a train wreck. His reviews on video games, when he actually makes any, you know, considering he's called the irate gamer. No, half the time he's off reviewing ketchup packets and cereal and dildos. When he's actually reviewing video games, his fucking reviews are terrible, okay? Half the time it sounds like he's reading off the Wikipedia page for the review, and then I fucking remember that this guy probably can't even read. You say shitload of fuck in your videos. Is there anybody else besides the AVGN that uses shitload of fuck? And especially considering it's like his most popular catchphrase, okay? He has the same fucking Nintendo Power posters hanging up on his walls, but the only difference is he has shitty Nintendo Power posters hanging up on shitty games that nobody even likes, but he doesn't fucking know that. You know why? Because Irate Gamer is not a gamer. That's right, he's not a gamer at all. The only reason he even does these game reviews is to promote his Ghost Hunters ripoff show, okay, that he has on his pathetic website where he tries to sell bullshit fucking DVDs. As if it's not enough to rip off AVGN, he also rips off Ghost Hunters, okay? Is this guy fucking mental?
The only other explanation I can think of is Kuhtoonster holding on to this concept that there are some content creators out there that just don't deserve a formal critique. And while I don't think that's quite what he was getting at here, I think that could play a large part in this whole debacle. I mean, after all, he holds the strong belief that you shouldn't be critical of the storytime animator community, and showed the clip of Darkseid condemning people for being critical towards meme animations, furthermore adding no comment on that, so I can only assume that this plays a big factor in arguments like this. Now granted, I'm not saying you can't make obvious jokes or jabs at someone like the irate gamer, but here's the thing, Kevin doesn't understand or respect that balance of personality versus intellectual honesty. I know this because he's not only compared the new wave commentary community to the Leafy community, don't know what the fuck that is because it doesn't exist, who is based in reactionary content as opposed to critical content, but he's now directly comparing Stax' personality to someone like Silent Rob's personality. They both tried to achieve something completely different. Now once again, I'll admit, segueing SR's video into a point about toxic communities didn't exactly add up, and I'm willing to admit my faults, but even the possibility of you inferring a topic like this has no right to be formally criticized is absolutely mind-numbingly stupid. See, this is the reason I keep treating Kuhtoonster's video as if it were treating itself seriously. Kuhtoonster is constantly giving off his own subjective arguments, which is fine if it's self-aware enough to admit that, but he's always acting as if his opinion is some sort of gospel, to such an extent that he will gladly partake in obvious hypocrisy as long as he throws in, you know, another shallow-ass jab that probably took like, what, fucking 2 seconds? This is not only evident throughout the logical fallacies I pointed out earlier, this is also evident in his original video. I pointed out this quote earlier, I'm pretty sure, but to me it signifies everything wrong with his critique and his overall ability to engage in legitimate conversation.
Is this what ranting has become? Like, seriously? And this isn't a small channel either. This guy has 30,000 subscribers. 30,000 idiots, you know, sit there and actually watch this guy. Honestly, spurgs like this ruined the website. They made this website into a fucking joke. A fucking joke.
That right there shows you that these opinions exceed just what he's criticized Stacks for. He's criticizing the community as a whole, and everything he both showcases and argues for is what he personally wants for this community. This is the entire reason why I made my point on toxicity to begin with, because this train of thought is both dangerous to the entire community, but also because toxicity really doesn't appeal to an insane amount of people anymore in regards to the general face of YouTube. In this segment, I wanted to look into why that's the case. I didn't throw any of my jabs in on this part, at least not for the majority of it. It's just me trying to constructively look into toxicity and why it's less favored by the general audience nowadays. Well, firstly, you have the obvious factor where it just makes you look pathetic. Fact is, when your videos are constructed around just the concept of being so fucking condescending as possible, your arguments will typically make very little sense or hold no weight to them. Even if they are condescending, arrogant bitches, guess what? They are not entitled to make their videos to suit you, believe it or not. Never did I say that they have to make the videos the way I want them to make it. The irony coming from the mouth of Kevin right now. I swear to God. Also, can you fucking stop interrupting my arguments already? It happens so much in this fucking video, Jesus Christ. If you shut the fuck up for a moment and actually allow me to explain myself, maybe you won't keep trying to poke holes in my arguments that aren't there. You see, when you interrupt someone's arguments before they've even gotten to the point, you're more likely to try to poke flaws in said argument that just doesn't exist because you didn't give the original person the time of day to explain why they feel the way they do. It's essentially the same as complaining about a book's ending before you've even finished reading the book. It's the same reason why people don't consider Chris Raygun or iDubbbz as contributions to the toxicity within their own communities, because they supply their arguments and claims with actual proof and context. In contrast, these people pretty much ask that you already 100% agree with their arguments, but also that you have no prior understanding or interaction with that person they're critiquing in the first place. So let me get this straight. You're going to show my friend Darkseid's video and your video as an example of people who don't provide context, yet you are not going to show any example whatsoever of him doing that? Bravo. Okay, boys, new drinking game. Every time Kuhtoons makes the request for me to go out of my way to interrupt everything in the video to argue about something that barely relates to the video I'm critiquing, take a drink. You'll fucking croak before you even finish this video. Kevin, are you so retarded that you demand me to supply context to every single visual aid I show to represent what I'm referring to when you yourself didn't even do that at the very start of your video? Like, think about it for a second. If the roles were reversed and I had the mindset of Kuhtoonster, every single time he mentions the channel at the beginning while talking about new wave commentators, you know, people like Jar, Digby, Pondsprocket, and Stacks Lottle, I'd just yell in the corner, "Really? You're just not gonna provide any context to any of these people? Bravo! Bravo fucking oh!" And by Kevin's logic, that's a real legitimate argument you could make. Why Darkseid specifically too? Why not the other YouTubers I presented as visual aid? Oh, because he's your friend, of course. Of course you're not even gonna be fair to any of the other YouTubers. That implied consistency. We can't have any of that. I'm just gonna skip to the next segment because, God, fuck, Kevin has ADHD or some shit. He accused me of not doing enough research earlier when he brought up Silent Rob by claiming I didn't know who the irate gamer was. Like, yeah, no, fuck you. I do know who he is, but I don't fucking care because the video wasn't on him. The video wasn't on Darkseid, it wasn't on Silent Rob, it wasn't on Irate Gamer, it was on your shitty video. I ignored that claim earlier because it makes no fucking sense. He literally pulls it out of thin air and he's reverted back to this weird argument that he's fucking made up. I could probably just end the video right here, all things considered, and how you look like a fucking drooling retard, but you did this to yourself. You're the idiot who decided to respond like a spastic 12-year-old who can't handle being shot in a first-person shooter. So you know what? From this point on, I'm going to be as harsh as possible for wasting both my time and everybody else's time on this shitty response. It's the same reason why people don't consider Chris Raygun or iDubbbz as contributions to the toxicity within their own communities, because they supply their arguments and claims with actual proof proof and context. In contrast, these people pretty much ask that you already 100% agree with their arguments, but also that you have no prior understanding or interaction with that person they're critiquing in the first place, because their arguments stem from a basic lack of knowledge that the general face of YouTubers have seemed to grasp. By doing this, you only appeal to a very small amount of people who are either extremely young and whose mentality of a joke is being edgy for the sake of being edgy, or people who are socially inept and can only surround themselves with other people who are equally toxic because they're so bad at being able to take the most basic things at face value, and as a result, nobody else can stand their presence. This is also why nobody takes these channels seriously either, no matter how hard you try. This is why, outside of a few outliers here and there, you will very rarely see a channel bathing in its own toxicity going anywhere on the site whatsoever. So let me get this straight. Because Leafy lost his popularity, that means that these channels go nowhere? What about Mr. Medicure, who has his live streams fucking trending all the damn time? And by the way, the old school ranting community that you want to condemn for being too toxic, oh noes, managed to get pretty big ass. And people like the Arc Fiend, Undertaker Freak 1127, and Repzion are all good examples of this. Oh, Kuhtoonster, stop! You're making it too easy for me at this point. You gotta make it a little harder for me. You gotta actually make me think here. I didn't mean to say that none of them go anywhere, but if you compare the ratio of successful toxic YouTubers to the people associated with the Alt-CC, a group notorious for being very much toxic, only about maybe like 2 or 3 people listed on the Wikia have ever even gotten anywhere near 10k subscribers. And if you think 10k subs is big shit, then you are harshly underestimating the full scale of this website. I mean, shit. Looking up all these people, probably about 3/4 of them have just flat out given up. And yes, I'm including the people listed under former Alt-CC members because the list itself is very outdated. Now, not every single person in the Alt-CC is toxic, nor is the Alt-CC the only toxic community on YouTube, but it pretty well represents exactly what I'm talking about. And most currently successful toxic YouTubers are either relics of the past or outright outliers. Also, Mr. Medicure, you're citing him to be a toxic YouTuber. This proves some key points about your arguments that immediately leads me to believe you didn't even pay attention to the most basic information when it's slapped in front of your face. I define toxic channels very clearly. Channels who depend upon the preconceptions of other YouTubers because their arguments are typically so void of actual discussion, wherein by that point, the goal and intention of the video is just to be as deconstructive as possible. Now, I haven't seen an insane amount of Mr. Medicure's content, but with this definition I've laid on the line twice already, Medicure does not fit that bill. At least, not in my eyes. He's pretty justified in his commentary because while he isn't exactly being constructive, he still relies on context to make his points. Therefore, he doesn't rely on the preconceptions of his targets. What's even more amazing is that I held a conversation with Darkseid publicly in my comment section in which he directly asked me how I felt over Medicure's content. I looked it over, and after watching it, I both defined what I was citing as toxicity and blatantly said Medicure did not represent these traits. What's even more embarrassing is that you supposedly held a live stream with Darkseid at some point after that little exchange of dialogue happened. You not only had one opportunity to just fucking read the comment section and know if Medicure was your best example, you had 2 when you held an open discussion with the person I discussed it towards. Leafy made a better response. Jesus Christ. He goes off to cite 3 other examples, people from which I'm not too familiar with. However, it's important to mention this because it shows how shallow Kuhtoon's claims of me not doing any research truly is. The Arc Fiend, the first person he cites as an example, only has 43,000 subs and has been doing this since 2006. Now, 43,000 ain't no small feat. Don't misinterpret, but it isn't a good example to use. If you want to use someone as an example, go with someone who probably has over 100,000 subs, not just a medium tier YouTuber. Once again, I'm not trying to brush 43k off the shoulder, but in regards to views, he isn't anything special. He regularly gets around 1 to 4k views per video, which I'll admit I'm somewhat jealous of myself, but that's still pretty low considering his sub count. Next YouTuber he refers to is Undertaker Freak 1127, who is another medium tier YouTuber with 43,000 subscribers and even less views on average. What the fuck are you trying to prove with these mediocre ass analytics? Oh, and look at that. He also started in 2006. This will play into a larger point later, I swear. Finally, Repzion, who has 500,000 subscribers and started in 2009. That one's pretty impressive, right? I mean, yeah, that's a pretty fucking impressive number right there, but Uh-oh. This is where Kuhtoon's lack of critical thought comes to bite him in the ass. Did you notice the trend in all these channels? How they all started from 2006 to 2009? That's because Kuhtoonster doesn't contextualize the different eras of the general YouTube audience. Back in 2006 to 2009, it was as easy as getting a baby to bite your finger and it was an instant viral classic. People were very easily entertained, and that's why channels that did share any semblance of what I previously defined as toxic YouTubers were capable of raking in some impressive views and subscribers. Hell, that's why Onision even has a platform today in the first place. Now, there was an insurgence of edgier content back in 2015, which is what allowed for Drama Alert and Leafy to get super huge in the first place, but once again, this was another instance of the general YouTube demographic demanding that. And I'm not saying that any of these channels Kevin listed off as toxic tubers actually means they're toxic. I mean, as I said earlier, Medicare is not what I define to be particularly toxic myself, but I no longer have the time or patience to even bother looking into those other channels' content whenever Kevin's wasted my time as much as he has here. We're approaching the end, folks. It's all good. You guys are the fucking evolution of the ranting community? Seriously? Do you honestly believe that with a straight face? No, Kevin. I did not say that I represent the evolution of the rant/commentary community. As a matter of fact, I spelled it out for you as obvious as I could. It's actually poetic irony, you see. This is the entire clip he questioned in the first place. And you see, while the rant community has had a long history of toxicity, the thing that's important to note is that content evolves, creators evolve, and their audience evolve. This is the sole foundation in which the algorithm thrives off of. If you're unable to see that, you will fall into complete obscurity like the rest of these toxic rant channels. The irony now is that the furthest he's ever gotten before getting shut down is 3K, and he shortly afterwards quit YouTube as a whole. Now, I'm not saying his channel wasn't wrongfully taken down. From my understanding, it was some sort of false flagger or some shit, but regardless, it sure is amazing how Kevin failed to realize the point I was making in regards to the algorithm and would soon fall into obscurity. As much as he would probably hate to admit it, I am the one thing that's still keeping him alive because I'm the only person still talking about it. And the only reason I'm keeping him alive is just to defile his washed up corpse a little longer before I throw it in the garbage. Now this is the final part I'll be looking into because I don't really have the heart to finish hearing what this retarded half-lizard has to say about, you know, how everyone else should be making content. Basically put, no, Stacks does not ruin the website. You ruined the website. People who are as toxic as you ruined the website. You are the reason petty drama exists. You are the reason that the rant community, to this day, isn't taken as seriously as it could be. Because you only appeal to edgelords whose idea of a joke is to say the words autistic and retard over and over again. That's what made the rant community so fucking awesome back in the day. It was people that made videos, and I know it sounds really fucking autistic to say, but it was people that made videos that went against the status quo. People were against the ranting community because they didn't like what they say. Also, petty drama? Really? Drama is fun as fuck to watch and partake in. And if you don't believe that, that's just your subjective opinion. Last time I checked, most ranters, even old school ones, didn't request an entire community to specifically abide by what they deem as suitable content. He also brings up what may seem like an actual semi-intelligent argument by pointing out petty drama, but I think he's upset about it for the wrong reason. He could have probably just pointed out my reaction and called me a hypocrite for perpetuating this petty drama, because I have, but he seems more upset that I called it petty more so than anything else. Despite him saying earlier that most content doesn't matter because it doesn't specifically affect his daily life. I've given up all hope, ladies and gentlemen. If you're going to get upset about me calling drama petty and act like it isn't petty just because it's entertaining, then at least make up your damn mind. Moving onwards, I'm going to explain myself here because this comment may actually relate back to the current state of YouTube and why it is the way it is today. While drama is extremely entertaining, and I enjoy partaking in it myself considering I'm not taking this very seriously, drama also affects how the outside world looks into YouTube. Whether you like it or not, Kevin, YouTube is a leading force in the entertainment industry right now. It is becoming more and more common amongst society. With that also comes a scare that results in old media combating new media. This is a very real issue that's caused the adpocalypse, something which deeply affected YouTube and its terms and services for the years following. Whenever a significant amount of creators resort to drama, that represents our site, and as a result, holds much more consequence than what we initially intend for it to. I know you don't personally care, but to some people, this is a matter of their livelihoods on the line. Now, I'm not advocating for a drama-free platform. It's brought everybody hours and hours of entertainment after all. However, I believe there might be an oversaturation of drama that has begun representing the site. This allows for more fuel for old media to attack new media, since a lot of it is petty to begin with, and from that, it persuades how the rest of the world sees YouTube. You can see aspects of this affecting online culture even to this day, especially with creators like Mc.Jones losing their entire livelihood because YouTube felt pressured under old media's persuasion. That is why oversaturation of drama can affect our platform. Now, I know Jones isn't directly tied to drama, but Jones' case, in my opinion, was a great example of how influential old media can be, even to the CEO of the site who is supposed to be representing us content creators. A better example of this happening is something along the lines of the adpocalypse as previously stated. And finally, the rest of this document is just a bunch of pointless shit. And with all of that, this video and this whole case can finally be closed. He goes on a little bit to claim I'm morally shaming, and while I can see where he's coming from, I don't fucking care, because unlike Kevin, I'm able to explain my points with reasoning and logic. And of course, he tries to tally up the arguments against me in a recap, which I would go over myself had this saga not gone on for long enough. However, there is one particular segment he makes which makes me question the entire validity of his perspective. It's a simple line, but one that I think really represents how formulaic and predictable these type of responses can be, and really muddies the water in regards to why he even did this in the first place. It definitely feels really good to be in another feud, and for the record, I miss the feeling. I truly do. This is suspicious to me because in his video where he announces retirement, he says this.
You know, it's just, I don't know, me getting into feuds with idiots on the internet, it's just gotten boring. And that was my phone, sorry if you heard that. But not only that, I just don't want to do it anymore. And not only has it just gotten boring, and in a way it just, goddamn, my phone keeps going off. But in a way it's also just gotten cringy. It's just not even worth doing it, to be honest. I'd rather just move on with my life and focus on shit that actually matters than get into dumbass feuds with people on the internet.
To me, it really begs the question of how much he actually meant in his entire argument. I mean, he just lied to his fans about being glad to be back in drama, so I mean, I don't know. Like I said, it muddies the water greatly. Now, as one last request to the audience. Now, because I don't want to end this video in bitter taste, my last request, as well as the last time I will be mentioning Kuhtoonster in a formal video as the main topic, ties into a competition I'm holding amongst the audience. You see, a little bit ago, I mentioned revealing my 1K special in a future video, and finally, that special video is getting revealed here today. However, in order to initiate it, I must request something to my audience. My 1000 sub special will be me reading off erotic fanfiction between me and Kuhtoonster himself. And you, the viewer base, will be the ones to create it. I am holding submissions until the 1st of March for anyone and everyone who wants to submit their erotic fanfiction to my email, and I'll read aloud for all to listen. So there it is, everyone. That's the big reveal. What an interesting competition for sure. And with that, I no longer have to worry about the fucking mucus from those fucking Mucinous X commercials, whatever the fuck those things are. If you enjoyed this video and this epic conclusion, go ahead and subscribe. Furthermore, I have a Patreon now as well, which helps me keep this show alive and evolving. So with all of that out of the way, this is Exro, telling you to give your money to me. Good night, 2018.